Fox 45 News is on weather alert heading into the weekend, tracking a line of storms with a history of causing damage moving toward this area. We'll have the timing and severe weather risks we could see here. Social media activity by a Parkville High School employee raises red flags, the material that prompted school officials to send a letter home to parents. Governor Westmore pushes back on criticism of his tweet about Freddie Gray.
What I said wasn't controversial.
The wounds, some say, have been reopened as Fox 45 News examines what's changed since Freddie Gray's in-custody death. Plus, Maryland's Attorney General calls out Kia and Hyundai after a rash of car thefts.
At the same time, the criminals have to be held accountable.
We asked the state's top prosecutor what he's doing to stop the actual thieves.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Kai Jackson. We begin tonight on Weather Alert as a line of storms moving east could put a damper on your weekend plans. Dry right now in Towson and at the Inner Harbor, but we've seen a wall of wicked weather across the country over the past 48 hours. In fact, 3 have died as a result of tornadoes ripping through Oklahoma, and severe flooding is expected throughout the Midwest. In fact, you can see water levels already rising in the state of Illinois. Meteorologist Jasmine Lomax is tracking that system as it moves our way. So, Jasmine, how bad will it get here?
Thanks, Kai. We are looking at the chance for strong to severe storms, and these could have impacts on your plans tomorrow, mainly during the afternoon and evening, even into the night. We're keeping track of this cold front. This is the same system that led to severe weather across parts of the Midwest, and it's still leading to areas of rain and storms. Right now, we're nice and dry. But tomorrow, as that cold front gets closer, we do have the chance for severe weather. We're looking at a slight risk for areas in yellow. That's threat level 2 of 5 for strong to severe storms. Areas in green are under a marginal risk, threat level 1 of 5. Regardless of where you live, you want to make sure that you're staying weather alert and make sure to have ways to receive alerts in case any are issued. Coming up, I'll have a look at the timing and the impacts from the system in my full forecast. Back to you.
Thank you, Jasmine. Anytime inclement weather hits, you can have the forecast in the palm of your hand. Download the Fox 45 weather app, search for WBFF in your app store. Disturbing allegations tonight against a Parkville High School security guard. Baltimore County Public Schools has launched an internal investigation into what they're calling concerning content on his social media accounts. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor joins us live with details. Rebecca?
Yeah, Kai, this afternoon, Baltimore County Public Schools alerting parents after sexually charged content was allegedly found on 33-year-old Brandon Emge's social media accounts. We have obtained a copy of the brief statement that was sent home to parents. It reads, quote, "We've been informed of some concerning content that is allegedly posted on a staff member's social media account. We are following all BCPS policy and processes to investigate this matter." Now, according to multiple sources, Emge was employed at Parkville as a Parkville security guard earlier this month after abruptly leaving his prior post at Sparrows Point High School. Emge's Twitter account has recently been deleted, but a Fox 45 investigation has uncovered screen-recorded videos of the alleged account, which displayed sexually explicit material. Additionally, Fox 45 News found a FetLife social media account appearing to belong to Emge. FetLife identifies itself as a, quote, "popular social network for the BDSM, fetish, and kinky community." As of News Time tonight, Emge has not responded to our request for comment. Now, keep in mind, back in 2020, a Fox 45 Project Baltimore investigation also uncovered a convicted sex offender attending Parkville High School. That sex offender, 21-year-old Santino Sedano, was enrolled at the school until he was arrested a second time in December of 2019. Teachers, students, and parents were not told a sex offender was in the building. When Fox 45 News broke the story, the community was outraged. Since then, laws have been put in place to prevent sex offenders, convicted sex offenders, from being students inside Maryland schools. We will obviously keep you updated as this story develops. But for now, reporting live in Baltimore, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Thank you, Rebecca. Gilman School in Baltimore hosted a day of dialogue to teach students about LGBTQ plus connections in their curriculum. A letter obtained by Zero Hedge states each teacher will devote 5 to 10 minutes of class time to share a connection between the LGBTQ plus community and their particular subject. He raises questions about the right time to introduce these lessons to students.
I think it's a great question for parents to decide with educators. I don't think there's a single right answer because parents may have different answers depending on the maturity of their children. I mean, look, even children within the age range of 10 to 13 to 15 can have, pretty dramatic differences in their level of maturity and ability to digest different material. This is a private school, right? So parents should be expressing their concerns to school officials.
Well, we did reach out to Gilman asking why the decision was made to expand the day of dialogue to the middle school and if parents were given more than 2 days notice or if they had the chance to opt out. We've not heard back. Per its website, Gilman describes itself as a diverse community dedicated to educating boys in mind, body, and spirit. Gilman seeks to produce men of character and integrity who have the skills and ability to make a positive contribution to the communities where they live and work, end quote. The Gilman School has been in the headlines recently. 2 months ago, a former teacher was indicted on more than a dozen counts of sex crimes, including rape and sexual abuse. Christopher Benden had worked at the school from 2007 until recently and was accused of having inappropriate relationships with former and current students. As of now, the trial is set to begin in August. We'll follow this developing story. You can see more about it on FOX45.com. Baltimore police tell Fox 45 a 23-year-old was shot this evening. Police say it happened around 5 o'clock on Normal Avenue in East Baltimore. A man was shot in the back and taken to the hospital. In this video from Citizen app, you can see him being loaded into an ambulance. Anyone with information is asked to call Baltimore police. An arrest is made in relation to a shootout this month. Investigators say 27-year-old Devontae Hunter Burgess shot a 25-year-old man on Wildwood Parkway in West Baltimore last week. He's charged with attempted murder and multiple handgun violations. In a previous release, police said the 25-year-old was the first to fire, and a 27-year-old at the scene returned fire with a handgun he legally owned. We reached out to Baltimore police for clarification about this incident. The back and forth between the union representing Baltimore City police officers and Governor Wes Moore continues. We caught up with the governor as he signed green energy bills into law. He touted his relationship with police. Fox 45's Jeff Abel is live at the union office with the governor's response to that fiery back and forth. Jeff?
Well, the governor is standing firm tonight, insisting there is nothing to refute. But here at the police union, his words have reopened some very deep wounds.
What I said wasn't controversial, and nor is it refutable.
Maryland Governor Wes Moore defending the words that ignited a fire among city police officers. It came in a tweet, which the governor posted this week on the anniversary of Freddie Gray's death. The governor wrote, "Freddie Gray's tragic death was a turning point, not just for those who knew him personally, but all of Baltimore as well. Honoring his memory means continuing the fight for justice and accountability. So what happened to him and far too many others never happens to anyone else."
And yeah, he's right. It was a turning point for this city. It got worse.
The governor's tweet left many police officers fuming. In a letter, the president of the police union reminded the governor that all officers were cleared of any wrongdoing in the case and wrote, "Instead of commending the men and women who risk their lives on a daily basis, you choose to pay homage to a drug dealer." At an event today, the governor was hardly conceding.
The local law enforcement know the support that I have for them, where we made historic investments of $122 million going towards local law enforcement. Local law enforcement know that I have their back.
Not only is the anniversary of Freddie Gray, I don't hear anyone talking about the anniversary of Kevon Gavin. No one knows who he is.
Kevon Gavin is a former city police officer who died 23 years ago, the very same April week that Freddie Gray died. The 27-year-old officer was killed in the line of duty when a fleeing suspect crashed into his police cruiser, sending it up in a ball of flames.
Why is no one outraged about that? And why do we never talk about that? We tend to lionize and make heroes of drug dealers who are spreading poison in our city. I'm not saying his death wasn't tragic. Freddie Gray's death was tragic. He shouldn't die from selling drugs. But why do we make heroes out of the wrong people?
While all officers were cleared of any wrongdoing in the Freddie Gray case, the city did settle a multi-million-dollar lawsuit with Freddie Gray's family. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. That brings us to our question of the day. Did the governor's tweet reopen old wounds for the city? Yes or no? So far, 97% of those who voted say yes. You can weigh in by going to foxbaltimore.com/vote. Governor Moore signed off on 3 climate bills today, which he says will accelerate the state's transition to clean energy, away from a reliance on oil and gas.
The progress that we are about to make as a collective government, as a state, and as a country and as a people, it doesn't just speak to the now, it speaks to the future. A future where the air is cleaner, a future where our energy grid is more resilient, a future where power is drawn from nature instead of consistently being in conflict with it.
From climate to crime, the policies up for debate in Maryland are similar to those in California. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost examines the 2 states and why some say the connection, they believe, is a way for the governor to boost his national profile.
Maryland politics shaped by a trifecta of Democratic control. With Governor Wes Moore and supermajorities in both chambers of the State House, policy decisions are often made by Democratic leadership. Climate change, illegal handgun regulations, and abortion access all on the table for lawmakers in Maryland during this last session. And when taking a deeper dive at the plans, the legislative language being debated in Annapolis often mirrors what's being done more than 2,700 miles away in Sacramento. Violent crime plaguing cities in both Maryland and California. Lawmakers in Annapolis spending much of the 90-day session getting Senate Bill 1 through, curbing where legal gun owners can bring their concealed weapons in public. Governor Moore signaling he will sign it. The language similar to Senate Bill 2 in California, where lawmakers there, however, put a vote off for now. Handgun regulations, not the only one Maryland is doing that's similar to Democrats in California.
Thank you all. It is an honor.
From one day in office.
But climate change is an existential threat, and it is happening now in our communities.
Governor Moore making green policy plans a priority. Fast forward a few weeks, Governor Moore doubling down on a net zero emissions goal by 2045. While a bill to make that plan passed in 2022 and was approved by former Governor Larry Hogan.
And not only better for our environment.
Moore moving more aggressively, adopting the Advanced Clean Cars 2 rule, which was modeled directly from California's, requiring all new passenger cars, trucks, and SUVs sold in California to be zero emissions by 2035. The price tag? The initial increased cost to Maryland taxpayers in the 2022 plan, according to the fiscal analysis, $9.5 million in the budget year 2023.
It's an issue that gets a lot of publicity.
Political analyst John Deedy says climate change is one of the big issues for Democrats nationally. And with the Governor Moore growing his national platform, Deedy says it's no surprise he's tackling climate change.
Environmental groups are much more liberal and progressive. Well, if you're going to win a Democratic primary, if you're thinking of running for president, you need those people in the bank.
California Governor Gavin Newsom facing criticism from Republicans for his EV plans. National Republicans trying to push consumer choice instead of what they've described as heavy-handed mandates for customers. Maryland Democrats not stopping there. Abortion access will appear on the ballot in 2024 after the General Assembly approved a constitutional amendment during this last session, despite abortion being legal by law in the state already. California also sending an abortion access plan to the governor in the 2021-2022 session. Newsom approving that too. Democrats outnumber Republicans in Maryland some 2-1. Governor Moore facing little pushback from other Democrats controlling the passage of his priorities, setting him up to move forward on policies often seen in states like California. And with Maryland's close proximity to the pulse of national politics, Deedy says the steps taken by first-term Governor Wes Moore signal the governor's house on State Circle may not be the only house Moore has aspirations to live in.
This will only increase and improve, solidifying that national base.
Especially as the 2024 presidential race begins to take shape. In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Still ahead on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock tonight. Racing suspended at Laurel Park. The Maryland Jockey Club's extreme measure. What we're learning about a fatal injury to a horse this week. The Supreme Court weighs in on the abortion pill. Access remains for now, but the case itself is far from decided. We break down what could happen next. And coming up at 10:30 tonight, Maryland's Attorney General asked for Kia and Hyundai to recall vehicles targeted by thieves acting on social media. We asked the AG what he's doing to hold thieves accountable. A house fire in Westminster Carroll County is under investigation. Deputy State Fire Marshals, the bomb squad, and ATF are looking into a blaze on Parisian Way. Now, neighbors tell Fox 45 they heard an explosion in the area around 9:30 this morning. Crews focus on the area around the garage. It's not clear what caused the explosion that neighbors heard or what was going on inside the garage. Fox 45 will bring you any updates. All horse racing at Laurel Park has been canceled until further notice. That's according to the Maryland Jockey Club's Twitter account. 4-year-old Golden Pegasus sustained a catastrophic injury and had to be euthanized. A second horse was vanned off the track, injured following a different race. It's not clear when racing will resume at the track. We'll continue to update this story as we learn more. A major victory for abortion rights as the Supreme Court rules in favor of protecting access to an abortion drug. It's the first big abortion decision since the court overturned Roe v. Wade last summer. An April ruling by a Texas judge blocked the FDA approval of mifepristone. The Supreme Court says the drug can remain on the market while appeals are being heard. Governor Wes Moore says Maryland will work to protect the right to an abortion regardless of today's decision.
Now, when we said that Maryland is going to be a safe haven for abortion rights, I meant that. And it means we're going to use every single tool and asset that we have in order to make that real. It means that in addition to doing things like releasing the $3.5 million of previously unreleased funds that I did in my first day of office, whether it's passing 3 pieces of legislation in our legislative session that focuses on access and privacy and making sure that people are not criminalized when they get abortions in the state of Maryland, or whether it was being in support of what happened in the legislative process where abortion is now going to be on the ballot next year to make it part of the constitutional amendment, or being able to stockpile the mifepristone in the state of Maryland. We are going to use every tool in our capacity to make sure that abortion and reproductive rights are going to be safe and secure here in the state of Maryland.
There is a chance the case could ultimately come back to the Supreme Court. For now, doctors in states where abortion is legal can prescribe the pill to their patients. A new report highlights the sharp increase in attempts to sanction the speech of scholars on college campuses. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has the story.
Scholars on college campuses increasingly told, you can't say that. A Minnesota art history professor recently fired for showing an image of the Prophet Muhammad. A San Diego State professor disciplined for using offensive language while teaching a class on offensive language.
In the sense that anything that causes them the least amount of discomfort cannot be tolerated for even 1 second.
A new report by the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, known as FIRE, studied cancel culture trends on college campuses. They found a sharp increase over the past 2 decades. Just 4 attempts to muzzle academics in 2000, compared with 145 attempts last year. We spoke with the director of polling and analytics at FIRE, Sean Stevens.
There's a number of people being targeted for what we would probably consider like overreactions and totally unreasonable things.
Sanction attempts shot up in 2017 following the election of Donald Trump and the Me Too movement, continuing to rise with the murder of George Floyd. The majority of these, 52%, originating on the political left, but a notable 41% come from the right. 2021 has the highest sanction attempts on record, largely thanks to a counter-push by the conservative Turning Point USA.
Regardless of where it's coming from, it's squelching, curbing, preventing students and faculty from deeply engaging in debate about important topics.
1/3 of these sanction attempts were initiated by undergraduate students, going after their professors and administrators they deem offensive in one way or another.
What counts as racism has expanded a lot for some people. And so a comment that a portion of people consider benign might be categorized as racist or sexist by someone else.
Fire researchers say the trend of sanctioning scholars shows no signs of slowing down anytime soon. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
Coming up, a life-saving drug could soon be much more affordable. Why the makers of Narcan are slashing its price. Russian regret as one of their bombs accidentally goes off in a Russian town. What the Kremlin is saying about the friendly fire.
We've been enjoying nice, dry, and hot weather, but that all comes to an end tomorrow as we get ready for the next weather maker. We're keeping track of a cold front that's moving across the country, leading to rain and storms. Rain and storms are headed our way for your Saturday. I'll break down the timing of those storms and the impacts that we could see here coming up in my Weather Authority forecast.
Fox 45 News Project Baltimore has been recognized for telling your stories.
One of only 3 broadcast teams nationally to win the prestigious Investigative Reporters and Editors Award.
A moving series of stories that demands answers about the quality of education provided by Baltimore City Schools to some students with disabilities.
The school system has failed Darien. It's a very grave injustice.
The team exposed multiple examples of outright corruption, with contractors and the school system both stealing money by falsifying reports, all while hurting kids in the process.
Children are not getting the services that they are entitled to.
The stories combine touching personal narratives with dogged reporting and show the profound impact that can come from sticking with the story.
I didn't know what else to do. That was like my last resort.
And our team will continue to tell your stories, to fight for change, and save our schools. Fox 45 News, Project Baltimore.
The CDC is signing off on more COVID booster shots for people 65 and older or those who are immunocompromised. Federal officials say those groups, plus anyone who wants added protection against COVID, can get additional booster doses ahead of the fall vaccination campaign. Health experts say this is another sign COVID may be here to stay.
It is not gone. And the people that we see who aren't doing well are the immune suppressed. And I think that's going to be a serious ongoing problem, is that the total number of cases in the community is not going to really increase, but the people who are at high risk are still going to get bad infections.
No one else needs another booster shot unless they haven't gotten a dose of the updated Omicron-specific vaccine. The makers of Narcan nasal spray are working to lower the cost of the overdose reversing product. Emergent is looking to make the out-of-pocket price less than $50 now that the FDA allows for over-the-counter sales. Right now, Narcan will cost you about $125. Emergent aims to have Narcan available online and in stores by late summer. Next on Fox 45 News at 10, Maryland's AG calls on feds to force Kia and Hyundai to issue recalls over software failures that make their cars easier to steal. We asked the AG what he's doing to hold thieves accountable. And lines in. Hundreds of fishermen participate in the annual shad run along the Susquehanna. Our Maryland Moment features anglers sharing what they love about fishing.
President Biden ready for another run? An announcement could be in the works right now. I'm Scott Thuman in Washington with New Reaction.
We're following three big stories at 10:30 tonight. President Biden is eyeing a formal launch of his re-election campaign, why a potential date carries some sentimental value. Dueling plans over how to address the debt ceiling as a deadline looms, what Maryland's congressional delegation is saying about the proposals, and Maryland Attorney General Anthony Brown's stern message to Hyundai and Kia, why some question if his priorities are in the right place.
They're stealing cars all around, and I don't want to be in that number.
At the end of the day, criminals have to be held accountable, but we shouldn't be making it easier for criminals to get away with their crimes.
More on that in a moment. We remain on weather alert as the line of storms heads east. That system brought deadly tornadoes and hail to the Great Plains, and the rain will begin here just in time for your weekend plans. Here's meteorologist Jasmine Lomax. Seems like a repeat, Jasmine.
Yeah, that's right. It seems like every weekend we have rain impacting the plans, and this weekend's no different. Hopefully we're able to enjoy our nice and dry weather today because we've got our next weather maker already on the way. That's this cold front that's leading to rain and storms across parts of the country. It's headed our way tonight into tomorrow, and that's going to lead to rain and storms here. There is the chance for strong to severe storms, and all of the areas in yellow are under a slight risk. That's threat level 2 of 5, while areas in the dark green are under a marginal risk threat level 1 of 5. Regardless of where you live, you want to make sure that you're staying weather alert and be sure to have multiple ways of receiving any warnings that may be issued. Gusty winds will be the primary threat. However, heavy rain is possible along with isolated tornadoes and large hail. This all comes tomorrow afternoon. Coming up, I'll have a look at the timing of the storms and when we dry out in my Weather Authority forecast. Back to you.
Thank you, Jasmine. Maryland's Attorney General is calling for Hyundai and Kia to recall their theft-prone cars nationwide. He blames social media, saying the internet is full of videos showing how to access these cars without a key. But some argue the frustration should be directed at criminals and not companies. Fox 45's Amy Simpson explains.
This Baltimore County woman up early on a Friday.
I wanted to get a lock to protect my car myself.
Now one of at least 400 county drivers.
Good morning. Thank you so much.
With an anti-theft device for their cars, as a rash of Hyundais and Kias continue to be stolen nationwide, likely in part due to a social media trend targeting certain Hyundais and Kias manufactured between 2011 and 2022.
They're stealing cars all around, and I don't want to be in that number.
Just yesterday, Maryland Attorney General Anthony Brown joining a coalition of other attorneys general across the country, calling on the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration to recall what he calls unsafe Hyundai and Kia vehicles, particularly vulnerable to theft. Brown says the vehicles are out of compliance with federal safety standards, posing unreasonable risk to public safety. The AG also saying local law enforcement is feeling the burden and doing all they can, but calls it a losing battle.
This is a circumstance where there's enough responsibility to go around. Companies do need to sell cars where locks work. At the same time, the criminals have to be held accountable by local police and prosecutors to make it clear that it's not just the companies that share the responsibility.
Former federal and state prosecutor Tharu Vignaraja weighing in, indicating it's not just the car companies who need to be held accountable.
At the end of the day, criminals have to be held accountable, but we shouldn't be making it easier for criminals to get away with their crimes.
Today, we asked the Attorney General's office, why is the AG asking for a recall instead of pursuing consequences and charges for those responsible for stealing cars? And should local states' attorneys be more aggressive in going after the people committing these car thefts? In a statement, a spokesperson for the AG said, Attorney General Brown has explained that he thinks the law enforcement community is doing everything it can to curb these thefts and arrest and prosecute those responsible. He was clear that the biggest obstacle to ending this dangerous cycle is Kia and Hyundai's failure to recall all of their impacted vehicles and fix them so their cars can't be stolen at the alarming and dangerous rates we have all witnessed. This is why we wrote to NHTSA asking it to force Hyundai and Kia to recall these vehicles.
Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Both Hyundai and Kia are blaming these thefts on social media. The companies tell Fox 45 News they are in compliance with federal safety standards, but they're offering free security updates to impacted owners. Kia and Hyundai's full statements are available on our website, foxbaltimore.com. Let's go to the White House right now, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, where President Biden appears to be getting closer to launching a re-election campaign. He could make it official next week. Chief political correspondent Scott Thuman looks into what's driving that decision and why the president is choosing now.
The will he or won't he wondering may be over. Politico reporting President Biden could announce a re-election bid next Tuesday. So what's driving the decision? Partially, Donald Trump.
My dad used to have an expression.
He'd say, Joey, don't compare me to the Almighty, compare me to the alternative.
Numbers show the two would be neck and neck, setting the stage for a possible retread of 2020, though Trump never really stopped.
The decline of America is being forced upon us by Biden and the radical left lunatics running our government right into the ground.
However, new AP polling also indicates real challenges for Biden. A paltry 26% of Americans want him to run again, and only 47% of Democrats. His approval rating also a hurdle as he takes blame for a struggling economy.
Incumbent presidents always take the hit. Clearly, this inflation spurt over his term has been a very serious one. The good news for him is it's coming down. The bad news is it may not be coming down fast enough.
So then why run again?
Most Democrats seem to believe their best chance of beating Trump or another Republican would be with the incumbent president. Now, that may be a faulty assumption, but it's an assumption right now that most Democrats are making.
There's also age as a factor. Biden is already the oldest president in history at a time the party is looking to shift younger. And if reelected, he would be 86 at the end of a second term.
Another headwind, splintered support among Democrats like Senator Joe Manchin, who's up for re-election in a red state, Thursday hammering Biden for not negotiating with Republicans over the debt limit, calling it a deficiency of leadership. In Washington, I'm Scott Thuman.
A strong finish to the week on Wall Street. All three major indices are up after a slow start to the day. Now, this comes as President Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy are offering conflicting solutions on the debt ceiling crisis. McCarthy's plan would raise the ceiling by over $1 trillion, while also slashing the president's student loan relief plan. President Biden says he wants to focus on a higher tax on the wealthiest Americans and corporations. Maryland's congressional delegation is weighing in.
I think what President Biden and the Democrats have put forward is the very sound proposal that we deal with the debt ceiling in a clean, flat fashion. We raise that, which is what we've always done. By the way, we did that under the last president, under President Trump. There were no conditions attached.
If that's like you're a teenager running up your family's credit card debt and you just go and raise the credit limit instead of limiting what your teenager is spending. The bottom line, it's a completely irresponsible way to do it. The majority of Americans agree that we need to control spending if we're going to raise our credit limit.
Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says if a deal isn't reached, the U.S. could default on its financial responsibilities as early as this summer. Taking a look right now at the Fox box on the top left, one of the biggest explosions since Russia's war in Ukraine began just happened in Russia, and the Kremlin admits it was a friendly fire situation. According to the Defense Ministry, an accidental discharge by a Russian pilot was to blame for the 1,000-pound bomb being dropped on a border city of nearly 500,000 people. 3 were hurt. Top right, it appears Twitter will require advertisers wanting tweets promoted to subscribe to Twitter Blue, what could amount to double pay. Users posted screenshots of emails. Bottom left, and new tonight, House Republicans have struck a deal with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office to allow members of Congress to question a former prosecutor involved in the probe of former President Trump, resulting in charges over hush money payments. DA Alvin Bragg had recently suffered a loss in court trying to block a potential subpoena. On the bottom right, involuntary manslaughter charges have been formally dropped against Alec Baldwin in the deadly movie set shooting of the movie Rust. However, New Mexico prosecutors don't rule out refiling if new evidence warrants it. Rods at the ready in Harford County as hundreds of fishermen lined up for the annual shad run along the Susquehanna River. In tonight's Maryland's Moment, photojournalist Sean Mullen has a look at this year's catch.